And welcome, everybody. This is Dustin Harris. I'm your host of the Appraiser Coach podcast. Great to be with you, folks. And hello to everybody on the Coach Cam. New thing we're doing here is the whole YouTube side of things. I have not quite figured out the technology on how to get my guest on YouTube yet. We're working on that. I think I've got a solution to that, but I got to play with it a little bit here this afternoon. But I do have a guest coming up, and very exciting show for you today. Something, that kind of merges the whole technology thing with the appraisal industry, and it's super fun, super exciting, a little off kilter of what we normally do here, but I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be interesting to dive into this topic today. I do want to first remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies, companies that have been with me from the very beginning. These are companies I highly endorse and just love. Working RE is one of those. Folks, if you want to find out what's going on in the appraisal world, you need to go to workingre.com because that's where it happens. Working RE is in workingrealestate.com. We're also sponsored by DataMaster. You can go to datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. Once again, that's datamasterfreetrial.com/coach for your full 14-day free trial. And speaking of free trials, 15 days at a la mode. If you go to alamode.com/free trial, once again, alamode.com/free trial for the appraisal software that I have been using for over 20 years. Well, folks, I want to introduce you to an interesting gentleman that I actually had opportunity to meet and hear speak at the AI conference, I think a couple of years ago. His name is Lamar Ellis, and he's from Atlanta, Georgia. Lamar, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dustin. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm super excited that you're on, and I'm super excited for the topic today. Folks, we're going to be talking about drones. I know that doesn't seem appraisal related, but I think you're going to feel differently after we get done with this episode. But I first want to introduce our guest. Again, his name is Lamar Ellis. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. He, folks, holds the prestigious MAI and SRA designations. That's pretty impressive, along with being an approved instructor for the Appraisal Institute. He also holds a remote pilot certification, which will come into play here as we talk today, which allows him to fly drones for commercial purposes and currently consults with drone companies all over the United States. He is a published author and assists in business development for several Atlanta-based drone companies. Lamar, I really appreciate you coming on today and taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Well, folks, we're going to be, again, listeners, we're going to be talking a little bit about drones and what they have to do with appraisals today. But I want to start just at the very basics. Let's say that some of my listeners have been living in a cave a little bit the last little while, and they really wouldn't have had to live in that cave very long because this is a fairly new technology in the last several years. Talk to us about, when we say the word drone, Lamar, what are we talking about? Let's define that first of all.
Well, drone is a slang for an unmanned vehicle. And so you could have submarines, automobiles, aircraft. But I think appraisers can use the aircraft drone for their purposes.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I clarify. So when my 9-year-old gets his remote control truck out and runs it around the living room, he's flying a drone he's using a drone at that point. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's remote controlled, or it's got an onboard computer.
Okay, so, but most of the time, I think when we're talking about drones, we're talking about those flying things that we see that we point in the air and say it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a drone, right?
It's a drone, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your history then, Lamar. So I mean, you're an SRA, you're an MAI, you're obviously an appraiser that knows what he's doing. What got you interested in drone technology?
Well, I was down in South Florida watching a news report on privacy infringement, and they were going to show the women in the back of the pool, having martinis.
Okay.
And so,
sure, they were having martinis. Okay, sure,
yeah.
That's what they were doing, right? Okay.
Yeah. So what they did was they took the drone off from the front of the house, and it was a multi-million-dollar property. And as they started flying over the house, I was seeing things from different perspectives that I'd never seen before. And the minute they got over the house, I looked at my grandfather and I said, that's what I'm going to do with my life. And basically the rest is history.
That is awesome. That is a great story.
Yeah.
I love it. So, okay, let's talk about this. So obviously coming from a background of being an appraiser, are you an active appraiser today?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So yes, you're an appraiser, have been for how many years?
27.
Okay, so a few. Here you are, an appraiser. You get interested in drones today, Lamar, and that is to talk about how drones and the appraisal industry merge?
Well, when I looked at it through the drone perspective, it was one of those things that, as an appraiser, we discover, analyze, report large volumes of data, and we're expected to make educated and informed decisions on market value.
Sure.
Well, it drove real-time analysis, and to me, it's a game changer. And those that are able to incorporate it into their practice might actually be able to make a little bit extra money.
Okay. Let's talk about that. What does that look like?
Well, one of the very first things that I got involved with was there was a tree limb sitting on a roof of a piece of property.
Okay.
And I had my very first drone. It wasn't a very good one. However, I was able to fly it up over that roof, and because of the grainy video, I was able to cut a picture out, and it wasn't the tree limb that was a problem. The roof was retaining water, which was going to cause a problem down the road. And so we were able to, looking at that, I saved myself from maybe having to address a few questions down the road that I didn't see when I was on site.
Interesting. Okay. So in other words, it gives you a different perspective that you wouldn't have maybe from the street or the walkthrough. No,
yeah, it's exactly right. You just don't have access to areas of a house or areas of a commercial piece of property, and so this gives you that opportunity. It's relatively inexpensive to use, and it can create a safer working environment.
Any other applications for appraisers?
Well, appraisers have got so many different clients that are out there. You've got accountants, you've got attorneys, developers, builders, insurance agents, along with your bankers and investors, homeowners. Everybody wants to see their property from a different angle. And one thing that I've noticed is that you put a drone over a piece of property and you give a couple of still shots, everybody wants to pay for the video.
Ah, okay. So you're talking kind of a side business as well then.
Oh, exactly. There's so many opportunities out there. I think as appraisers, we do so very much work and we give so very much to our clients that we actually have an ability now to pull some of that information and keep it in-house and maybe sell it on the side.
So, every once in a while, I'm strictly residential. You should know that.
Right.
And so, therefore, I don't do, commercial buildings, certainly, but I don't also do large ranches in Idaho. But I do know appraisers that do. And some of the, the interesting ways that they see, they've told me stories that make me chuckle. But on the other hand, I definitely see, where they're coming from. For example, I know of an appraiser that on a regular basis takes his horse trailer to his assignments, and he rides the property on his horse. I know another that does have a private pilot's license, and I know a third who has a regular pilot that he rents that he employs to fly him over these properties. Tell me how a drone might help in the commercial side of things.
Well, it's they're easy to deploy, and whereas if you had to hire a pilot, you've got the constraints of when can they fly or the conditions worth flying on the date they're able to. With the drone, you could wake up in the morning, it's a nice sunny day, and you could actually be out at that property and getting some good footage, whereas your pilot might not be able to fly it that afternoon.
So somebody, from my perspective, just help me with my ignorance here. My son has a drone. I honestly have played with it a little bit. He doesn't like me to play with it because he's afraid I'm going to crash it. I don't blame him. I probably would. So I really haven't had a lot of experience with these things as far as distance and abilities and that kind of a thing. Talk to me about, let's say a 1,000-acre ranch. Is that a possibility to explore that ranch with a single drone?
Well, definitely, it is a possibility, but there are rules and regulations that are in place in the United States. One of the main ones being line of sight. So you always have to keep that drone in your line of sight because you're now in a three-dimensional space.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
and I want to get into more of the rules and regulations a little later in the episode. But speaking of flight and speaking of rules and regulations, drones fall under the authority of the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Do you need permission from the FAA to fly a drone then?
No, no, not at all. Not if you're flying for recreational use. But if you're going to use it for commercial, you're going to have to get a certification, which is a Part 107 certification.
Okay.
Just to show you how recently it came out, the rules and regulations came out August 29th of this year.
Okay, I think I remember my son saying something about there being big changes in at the end of August, 1st of September. So,
Right.
Do we consider then appraising? Is that considered commercial use?
Well, if you're going to use the photography or the results that are provided by the drone, then yes, it is a commercial use.
Okay, so somebody like myself, if I wanted to use it as an appraiser, I'm looking at getting a certification.
Exactly.
Tell me
Exactly.
more about that. What does that entail?
Well, it's called the Part 107, and the nice thing about that is that FAA, when it originally came out with rules and regulations, they didn't have anything for unmanned aircraft. On August 29th, they came out with unmanned aircraft rules, which means somebody like me that is not a pilot can go out and get the certification to fly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but you have to be, 16 years old, and you have to be able to read, write, and speak English, pass an exam, and pass a safety program. And once you've done all that, you get vetted by the TSA, and about 2 months later, you'll have a license or
Okay.
certification.
So it's a fairly speedy process. Then we're not talking a couple years. We're talking a couple weeks, couple months.
It's now a speedy process. I don't know if it will always be a speedy process, but they just opened up the floodgates. And so if you're going to get a certification to fly for commercial use, I'd say now's about the time to do it.
Gotcha. Okay. Before they clamp down, right?
Before some bonehead goes out there and does something wrong.
Get that grandfather clause, right? So
Exactly.
let's talk specific to appraisers. Okay. As an appraiser, talk to me about the requirements of using a drone.
Well, you've got the one of the requirements is that you've got you can only fly it up 400 feet AGL, which is above ground level, or if you have a structure, you can fly 400 feet above that structure.
Okay.
The great thing about the unmanned rules is that now it states you can fly within 400 feet of the structure. So you've got a 1,000 foot build out of the building as long as you're within 400 feet of it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it used to be that the minute you left the rooftop of that building, you had to go down to 400 feet above the ground. So that was one benefit. You got to keep it within line of sight, but you can use a visual observer. And a visual observer can be, talking with you and observing the drone from the three-dimensional space, whereas you're looking through the camera of what the drone sees.
Okay, so what you're saying is I could, as an appraiser, let's go back to the ranch analogy for just a second. I could have an appraiser on the back side of that ranch. I could be on the front side, and as long as one of us could see that drone and we were in communication with one another at all times, then we're within regulations.
Yes, it's kind of a gray area to me. My contacts with the FAA, that yes, as long as you've got a visual observer that's got his eyes on that, the operator doesn't have to have his eyes on the drone.
Okay, interesting. What about the drone itself? What are the requirements for those?
Well, they have to weigh over 0.55 pounds to 55 pounds, which is basically they have to weigh more than 2 sticks of butter up to 55 pounds.
Okay.
And that's basically everything that you're lifting off the ground.
So that's camera, payload if you've got everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And you're going to have to register that drone, and they've made the registration process real easy. It costs $5. You'll get one number that you'll put on every one of your drones.
Oh, okay.
You're doing, a commercial too. They're selling $10 million drones a year. They can't give you a different registration number for each one. They run out of them. So all it is it gives them an opportunity to find out who was flying if your drone crashes, I guess.
Oh, I see. Okay, so is there a cost for that registration?
$5.
So is that so if I have 2 drones, we're not talking $10, we're talking $5.
Well, if the drones are being used for commercial purpose, you're going to be registering the serial numbers of each drone.
Oh, I see.
So it'll be $5 for each drone
one.
commercially.
Okay.
But recreationally, no. You'll get one registration number for all your recreational drones.
Okay. Because I don't do a lot of cooking, I'm going to go back to your 2 sticks of butter analogy.
Okay.
I was in a department store 2 days ago, actually, with my kids, just kind of looking for Santa Claus gifts, if you will. And they had a drone there. It was probably a cheap, it was like $55 or something like that. It was fairly inexpensive with a camera, so I'm assuming there wasn't much to it. It wasn't a Phantom, but I guess I would ask myself, what does that type? I mean, it was, I don't know, maybe a foot wide, maybe 12 inches wide, maybe 6 inches tall. What are we talking? Is that the type of drone that would need to be registered, or is that something too light in your mind?
Well, FAA has got a website, UAS. It stands for Unmanned Aerial Systems, and under that website, they've got pictures of drones, and you can actually take the drone that you see in the retail store and see if they've got a comparable picture online.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it'll tell you whether or not you need to register it or not. Some drones definitely weigh over 2 sticks of butter that do not have to be registered.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Why is that?
They had to put something down on paper.
Right. Okay.
And so it's the knee-jerk reaction to get things started.
Okay. So the little helicopter that my son got for his birthday here a few months ago, this is my younger son, that is probably about 2 inches tall and about 3 inches wide. Probably register that one, at least for commercial use, right?
I sure for recreational either.
At all. Okay. So let's talk these sneaky appraisers out there. I know you're out there, listeners, and you're going to try to get by without registering your drone. Lamar, tell us what's going to happen to that individual.
Well, they're still working out the legalities of each of these things, but if you get caught, you could be subjected to civil penalties, and one of the things is that you'd be under a registry, stating if you got caught again, you could, face a severe civil penalty, or if you went to go and apply for a Part 107 certificate, you'd be denied because not following the rules.
Right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
You talked about the 400-foot rule and the line of sight rule. Are there any other rules that an appraiser should be aware of?
Well, the biggest concern for the FAA is that anybody who's flying a drone understands airspace. And you've got different classifications of airspace, Class A, B, C, D, E, G airspace. But the rule of thumb is that if you're within 5 miles of an airport, you need to contact the appropriate authorities to let them know that you're going to be flying in the air. It's really not much. It's not much of anything. I mean, you look at flying a drone over a residential piece of property, you're not going to probably take it to 400 feet because it's not necessary. So you'd be at 100 feet. And I've had times where I've been in contact with control towers, and they're wondering why I'm contacting them in the first place.
Okay.
So it's very simple. It's an easy process, and they want to work with you because they'd rather know that you're in the air than to know you're doing it illegally, I guess.
Gotcha. So talk to me more about, let's talk about the recreational use again just a little bit. So not necessarily on the appraisal side, on the commercial side, but what about maybe flying over your kid's soccer game, or maybe a bigger sporting event? Is that okay?
No, you can't fly it over people. That's one of the big rules that out there. They really have this thing about densely populated and sparsely populated. And densely populated to them seems to be if one person is not involved with the operation of the drone. So if you were going to fly in something where you're going to be flying over people or flying over a business or a recreational, you need to inform the people that are in the building or outside of the inherent risk of flying a drone in the air, and that they need to be aware that there is a potential for something to happen, and that they are, I guess, giving you a waiver to fly.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a people rule as well then. I can't just take this out and fly it down Main Street of my hometown.
Well, there are a lot of people out there that are doing it, but you're not supposed to.
Right. The other thing that comes to mind that I know people aren't supposed to do, because we had in my hometown, about 3 months ago, there was a huge fire. It burned 80,000 acres, and I know that there was a big push on the local news because there were some hobbyists out there trying to get pictures of this fire, and they were doing it from drones. That's a big no-no as well, right?
Oh, it is a big no-no to impede with emergency response units.
Yeah. Okay.
To fight a fire, they can only fight it during the day, and you got a drone in the air. They have to pretty much wait 30 minutes to get clearance to go back up again. So
interesting.
It does. There was a gentleman out in California that got fined, I think, $27,500 for flying over a fire.
Holy smokes, man!
Yeah. Well, it's there. You'll see these large sums of fines that they're being enacted, but they just want to get the fines on the books, and then they'll settle for another rate.
There you go. You gotta make an example, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I want to back up for just a second. You talked about this test. As appraisers, we have to take a lot of tests, and
right.
I get the tests. And I would love to look into drones and having that be a part of my repertoire, if you will, as an appraiser. Let's talk more about that test. What are there study helps out there? I mean, what type of test are we talking about? Is this a written test? Is this you got to actually go fly it for the instructor? I mean, how does this actually play out?
Well, I wish they would have a test where you'd have to fly it for an instructor, but no, it's a multiple choice test, 60 questions. You get 2 hours to take it, and you have to go to a testing center.
Okay.
And sign up, go over things as to what are the rules and regulations, airspace classifications, do you have emergency procedures in place, what are the psychological effects of drugs and alcohol, crew resource management, anything that is involved with flying. They'll test you on. The main things that they're really looking at is that you understand weather and you understand airspace. There are so many, help study guides for this that are out on the market. And I was able to get one that was called Remote Pilot Part 107 Test Prep, which was on the iPhone. And it was pretty much 400 question bank of questions that actually one or two were on the test.
Well, they take this pretty seriously.
Yeah, they try to.
These are not toys. I think that's maybe part of the problem, Lamar, is I think individuals jump into this thinking that they're getting a remote control car, if you will, and I think the FAA is saying, hey, you know what, you guys need to take these things a little bit more seriously than just a toy.
Well, ignorance is not a defense.
Right.
So the FAA has got the full legal arm of the government. They'll come after you if you do something stupid.
Well, we are joined by Lamar Ellis. He is an expert in both the appraisal side of things and the drone side of things. I want to talk more, Lamar, when we come back from the break, a little bit more about what this looks like for an appraiser and how an appraiser, like myself and like my listeners, can put drones into use and maybe some of the pitfalls of doing so. But I want to pause here first and remind you we are sponsored by Working RE magazine. Folks, Working RE is, I have to tell you, I first met Lamar here a couple years ago at the AI conference, I think in Dallas, and really enjoyed his. I made a beeline when I found out that this is what he was going to be speaking on. I made a beeline over there to make sure I was in his class and thoroughly enjoyed it. But he came up on my radar again just a couple of days ago because of Working RE. Folks, if you go to workingre.com and type in the word drones, DRONES, you will find an article by Lamar about drones and going into much more detail than we will have time to go into today. But folks, if you want to know what's going on in the appraisal industry, no matter what it is, whether it be drones or whether it be your future as a trainer of future appraisers, go to Working RE. Working RE is your place, your one-stop shop, if you will, to find out what's going on in the appraisal profession. WorkingRE.com. Again, that's WorkingRE as in realestate.com. Folks, I've been talking with the folks over at DataMaster quite often the last little while. Ran into them at the conference here a few weeks ago, and I've been on the phone with them a couple of times since. They are in the process of making some major changes to DataMaster. Folks, if you have not checked out DataMaster, you need to, and you need to get on board right away because the changes that are coming are going to revolutionize the way that you do appraisals. That's right. They are now allowing you to do most of the appraisal process within DataMaster before you export to your appraisal software. And I'm telling you, the tools that they have developed are incredible. For example, how would you like to be able to look at all of the interior and exterior photos while you're in the process of choosing your comparables? How would you like to read the public and private statements that are found in the MLS without actually having to be in the MLS? Folks, that's the kind of thing that DataMaster is developing, and folks, even before they get to that point, DataMaster is well worth it for what they do to allow you to do more with less. Folks, if you want to try them out, check it out right now at datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. That's datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. And a la mode. I have been using a la mode for over 20 years, and they have been doing appraisal software for over 30 years. They've been serving the appraisal industry for that long, and folks, they are an advocate for the appraiser. Not only are they an advocate for the appraisal profession, but they're an advocate for the individual appraiser, meaning they are constantly developing and redeveloping their software to make it greater and better. Coming up, they have Titan. Titan is going to be the cloud-based service that you are able to do your appraisal from anywhere you have an internet connection and a browser. That's right, it's coming soon. Folks, if you have not tried editor. Folks, if you have not tried a la mode, you need to right now, and you can try them for 15 days free of charge. That's all the bells, all the whistles, all the customer support, everything you need for 15 days free to you. That's alamode.com/free trial. Once again, alamode.com/free trial, or you can call them at 800-ALAMODE. And welcome back, folks. We are talking with Lamar Ellis. Lamar is an appraiser out of Atlanta, Georgia. He's also an advocate and a user of drones. And we're talking about how drones and appraisers fit together. Welcome back to the program, Lamar.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you joining me today. This is a very interesting subject to me, just because I love technology, I love gadgets, I love tools and tricks, and I don't know whether I would even use a drone, but it's interesting anyway to explore the possibilities. Now that we know a little bit about the rules of drones, let's talk more about how appraisers across the country are currently using drones. So Lamar, now that we know the rules about drones, let's talk about why would an appraiser use them?
Well, because drones are basically revolutionizing so many industries, and they're making a huge impact already in real estate. Not only do they save you money, but they're also energy efficient, and the drone industry is creating new avenues of making some money.
It sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me like drone use is more. I'm hearing more commercial side than I am residential side. In other words, I'm in my head, I'm trying to fit this in, and it's because I love gadgets so much. I'm trying to think, okay, geez, how can I justify this to my wife, right? Another business right. Hey, babe, I'm sorry, I've got to buy a drone. I mean, I've just got to do it. So I'm trying to justify this in my head, but it sounds to me more commercial side than residential, right? Or am I just not seeing the picture?
Well, it's basically being explored right now, all the different applications. And I think that if on the commercial side, there seems to be more benefit currently than on the residential side. But as the drones are getting smaller, more compact, easier to deploy, I think that residential appraisers were going to find just as many uses out of them as the commercial guys.
Okay, let me throw something else at you.
Okay.
You said earlier, you were utilizing, you were in an inspection, you looked up, you saw a tree limb on the roof, you pulled out your drone, you looked at it, and you saw a bigger problem there, that there was standing water on the roof.
Right.
What about the argument that drones would actually increase, not decrease, but actually increase the liability? And hear me out here. What I'm saying is we appraisers have the opportunity to be somewhat. I mean, you said, ignorance is not an excuse. I get that when it comes to the law. I understand that. But as an appraiser, we do make a lot of assumptions, okay? We assume there's not radon in the crawl space, okay? Do we actually test for radon? Of course we don't. We're not home inspectors. And some would say, well, if we did test for that, then we're now liable for the information that we have. What about the argument that an appraiser might make and say, you know what, the less I know about that standing water on the roof, the better off for me, because if I don't know about it and I shouldn't have known about it, then I can't be held liable for it?
Well, I think it just puts you into a different category of the type of appraiser you're out on the market. I think different clients want different degrees of qualifications. And so you might be able to establish yourself as the guy that is looking at the roof and has the equipment to look at it more thoroughly than maybe another appraiser. So I look at it as it's an avenue to make additional income because you're elevating yourself to a higher level.
Gotcha. Okay, good. And so when I hear you say that, I'm also thinking outside the box here and saying, 85% of my work comes from AMCs, and maybe the way I described, things earlier may fit that category. But for more the non-lender clients, the estates, the divorce, for sale by owners, those kind of things, I can definitely see that this would be a benefit in that kind of situation.
Tremendous benefit. You've got so many people that have got interest in what appraisers do, and we are experts in real estate. So you've got, like I said, the financial institutions, the accountants, insurance companies, realtors, brokers, agents, homeowners, builders, developers, just a plethora of different industries that are interested in what we do and can provide. And the more information that we have, I think the more benefit it will be to our client base. Well,
I'll tell you what, Lamar, I would love to have you on next week to talk more about drones. I'm just super excited about this. I don't know if you can tell. I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store. I love new technologies, and I love learning about things, especially when it comes to gadgets and gizmos, if you will. And I've got a bunch of other questions I would love to ask you. Would you be willing to come on next week with us as well?
Sure.
Perfect. Well, Lamar, tell us how we can get to know more about you, get to know more about drones and the appraisal industry, and then we'll have you on next week to go into more detail.
Well, again, my name's Lamar Ellis. I'm from Atlanta, and my company name is Drone Noir, and that is DRONENOIR. The Noir stands for News, Opinions, Information, Reviews.
Nice.
I have a website, and I also have a Facebook page. So please go to the Facebook page and like me. What I do is I put up every day different articles that deal with civilian commercial use of drones. I stay away from the military aspects of it because I'm really not interested in what the military can do.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, enough said. Lamar, Thank you for joining us, and we'll have you on next week to talk more about drones.
Thank you.
All right, that's Lamar Ellis, folks. We'll have him on next week. I want to remind you that right now you can belong to our All-Star team. If you want to know about tips and tricks and technologies, folks, the All-Star team is where it's at. I just did a full review of an app that every appraiser should have. It's found right there if you're a member of the All-Star team. You just need to jump on my website at theappraisercoach.com and go to the membership side and go to the All-Star team. For as little as $9.95 a month, folks, you can have that full 8-page newsletter as well as access to our private and secret Facebook group where we talk civilly to one another. That's the All-Star team. Again, theappraisercoach.com, memberships, and the All-Star team. Thanks again for Lamar for joining us today and for sharing his information about drones, and we will have him on next week to talk more. We'll catch you that next time.